Hello and welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. The last few days have seen a major churning as Islamophobia in India made international headlines. The backlash led by Arab countries forced the BJP to drop two of its spokespersons who had made derogatory comments about Islam. The party, which has successfully ridden the twin planks of Hindutva and development, finally realized that there are some red lines which cannot be crossed without hurting India's strategic and economic interests in the rest of the world. The reverberations of this diplomatic backlash are still being felt. But what does this actually mean for the BJP's brand of politics and, more importantly, for India's Muslims, for those who have felt systematically marginalized over the last few years? Joining us on NDTV today, we have with us actor Naseeruddin Shah. Mr. Shah, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. I just wanted your first thoughts on this controversy that's erupted over the last few days. It's ironic that it took despotic Arab countries for the BJP to act and not the voices of its own citizens.
Yeah. What the Indian government did was too little, too late. It was a week before they even opened their mouths and said anything condemning these kind of statements. These kind of statements in a country like Pakistan or Bangladesh or Afghanistan, which we hope to include in Akhand Bharat someday, would result in a death sentence, quite simply, because it would be considered blasphemous. Here, there was not a sound from the top, and absolutely no acknowledgement of the hurt caused to millions of believers. I don't think that there has ever, and I hear this lady who was dismissed from the BJP, she is not a fringe element as they claim. She is the national spokesman. So it's not possible that what she said was not approved from the top. And she says, I've heard so many derogatory remarks about Hindu gods. I would challenge her to show me one video clipping or one recording of a Muslim derogating the Lord Ram or the Lord Krishna. Krishna, in fact, was a butt of jokes even among the Hindus until this whole thin-skinned thing took over. But I don't think there has ever been an incident where a Muslim made such an inflammatory statement about a Hindu deity. It's telling. And I wish that the hate mongers whom the PM seems to follow on Twitter, that he does something to silence them, because only his voice is going to do it.
Mohan Bhagwat Prime Minister's voice?
The Prime Minister's voice. I think that this is the time when he needs to step in if he really wants to stop this poison from spreading.
So do you see it as an insincere act or only prompted because of this diplomatic backlash and nothing more? And therefore, do you worry that this is sort of a temporary step that India will tide over it and then move on and go back to business?
Yes, I think it's an insincere apology. It's hardly meant to assuage hurt feelings, and I wouldn't be surprised if another such hate speech occurs. I mean, it's ironic that if you talk of peace and unity, you get locked up in jail for more than a year. You talk of genocide, and you get a slap on the wrist. There are double standards working here. It's like the double think of George Orwell's 1984, the double speak and the new speak, why do you need so many words for the word good? Just have good and ungood, and that's what it really seems to be coming to over here. Either you're on my byway or you're on the highway, and it is worrisome.
No, you mentioned that right in the beginning that you don't think any Muslim would have ever said anything derogatory, about Hindu deities. But the fact is, when you look at television debates, unfortunately, night after night, you do find sort of extreme voices on either side, Hindus, Muslims, that say a lot of, very unfortunate, derogatory things about each other all the time. How much do you think news television is responsible for the current state of affairs that we are in? Because they've essentially become platforms for propagating hate.
You're absolutely right. And I would put the complete responsibility on them and on social media. It's a manufactured hate. It's a kind of venom that begins to spew when you're confronted with somebody with an opposite opinion. and neither you nor the other person can accept each other's opinion, and then you come down to name calling, and you come down to denigrating what that other person considers most precious and sacred. I wonder how long it is before shivlings start to be searched for under every church. Because Christianity arrived here much after the Muslims.
Nupur Sharma's comments seem to have been the spark, but wouldn't you say that this has been building up for some time, whether it's about the CAA, controversies over the hijab, lynchings that have actually taken place, Dharam Sansads where, there were literally calls for genocide of Muslims. This has been building up for years.
It's been building up longer than we imagine. It's and I think the fault lies with my parents' generation, because since childhood there were jokes made about you being an M or you being an H, or and you being circumcised or you being wearing a tilak on your forehead. There were jokes about it which never I can remember led to violence among students. They were just barbs that were traded, but that was something that was born in them. Memetics was what was responsible, even if they weren't fed hate stories in their childhood. And a lot of them were, because our parents had experienced partition, they'd seen the horrors, and it's been passed down from there, and it's been brewing all this time. It's been, and now suddenly it has been legitimized. Not suddenly, it has gradually been legitimized, where you feel, as Kunal Kamra says, that what you used to say after 4 drinks, you now say over morning coffee. But anyway, I think the point is, as Prashant Kishore said in an interview, that there's no point going on blasting the BJP, because we're just preaching to the converted. For every one Hindu who agrees with the rabid Hindutva philosophy, there is one Hindu who doesn't agree. We have to address that 1%. We have to get those people to see our point of view. And I think that's a very important statement.
Do you think that therefore it becomes imperative that those who are sort of moderate, sensible voices from the Hindu community as well need to speak up and say this is wrong?
Absolutely. And I've been feeling this for a long time, and I've been awaiting the day when this will happen. In fact, I remember a heated exchange of correspondence with a very dear friend of mine who lives in New York, who says, when the horrors of Afghanistan were on, why don't moderate Muslims speak up about it? And in reply, a few years later, I told her that why don't moderate Hindus, it's about time that moderate Hindus spoke up as well. And I think it is really high time. But in politics, I don't think that there is any permanent loyalty. I don't think there are any permanent convictions. The only conviction is power, and that's what all politicians are after. And the amount of floor crossing that's been taking place, I mean, look at Kanhaiya Kumar, look at this fellow in Bengal. The people who they preached venomously against, they've gone and joined. So it's all, it's a game which you have to play very cleverly, and I think the BJP is playing it extremely cleverly.
But aren't you disappointed that politically as well, that where is that space where you have, let's say, a national political party or a big regional force that's actually speaking up for the rights of minorities? Because it seems to be now the thing that you don't do. Even the Congress doesn't speak up for Muslims the way that it once did. Everyone is sort of tiptoeing around this. Arvind Kejriwal is doing sort of, the soft Hindutva. Even the Gandhis are kind of dipping their toe in that. So who's speaking up, for atrocities or, the marginalization of Muslims? Isn't that disappointing to you as a voter?
It is disappointing, but there are a few people, and I can't expect more than that. At the moment, they're all afraid of being accused of the cardinal sin of appeasement. And where this word came from, I don't know, but it's become a pejorative now. Any Muslim who asks for his rights is considered to be being appeased. And why do we have to ask for our rights? And why must we be divided into these sections? Why can't we speak of all of us as Indians? It's really quite astounding. What the Sikhs did during the protests against namaz in Gurugram, where they opened the Gurudwara for the namaz. There was a time when Guru Nanak, his first disciple, was a Muslim. Sardar Mardana, Bhai Mardana, who used to sing, who was a practicing Muslim, used to sing Gurwani in the Gurudwara Panja Sahib. I've seen it, I visited with my own eyes. There are Muslim sevaks in Pakistan who look after the pilgrims who travel, thousands of them from India every year for Gurpurab or for Panchami or for any of the other occasions of the Sikhs. There are Muslim sevaks in the Pandharpur Yatra, which is about to begin. Aurangzeb is evoked all the time, as if he was the mortal enemy. And destroying his tomb, okay, go ahead and destroy it. It's not going to make any difference. The next you want to destroy the Taj Mahal, go ahead and destroy that. Go ahead and knock down the Red Fort and the Qutub Minar as well. Okay, that's all right.
You think it could come to that?
Take an example. What I'm trying to get at is the so-called enmity between Aurangzeb and Shivaji, which is always evoked, that you need a Shivaji to oppose in Aurangzeb. In the land where Aurangzeb and Shivaji fought their battles, there is the Pandharpur Yatra which takes place, which walks, these Varkaris who walk all the way from Pune or Nasik all the way to Pandharpur, carrying idols. And there are Muslim villages on the way where they rest. There is a dargah where they are given refuge on the way. They are fed and they are looked after, and their feet are massaged by Muslim sevaks, all Maharashtrian Muslim sevaks. There is still that amount of hope left, and I think we mustn't let go of that.
Well, there is the Amarnath Yatra as well, which is about to start from my home state in Jammu and Kashmir, where you have, Muslims who are very much, part of helping the Yatris along and very much part of that process. But Naseeruddin Shah, you said something right at the beginning, that, these comments that these spokespersons made would be considered, say, blasphemous in some of these countries that have, today criticized India for this and criticized their comments. The fact is, though, we are not Bangladesh, we are not Saudi Arabia, we are a democracy, and we have to aspire to be better and not to compare ourselves to those countries. So what would you say to those who have taken this to the other extreme then? There are death threats that Nupur Sharma is getting, that the other BJP spokesperson is getting. We also need to speak up and say that that's not right. That's not the solution to this.
Sure. How many people have spoken up in defense of Rana Ayub when she gets death threats and rape threats and obscene photographs and so on? It's a pity that these death threats are coming, and they're coming mostly from people who empty vessels, who make the most sound. And I don't think she needs to fear. In any case, she's going to be provided with ample security. But to even think that way, to think that route is wrong, and that is why these countries, at least Afghanistan and Pakistan, are in the mess they're in. Being the PM of Pakistan is like sitting on a ticking time bomb. I certainly do. We do not want to emulate these countries, but willy-nilly, are we doing so? Not just slaughtering a cow, but on the suspicion of slaughtering a cow, people are lynched, people are killed. Untouchables who are skinning a dead cow are whipped in public. These are not the kind of things that used to happen in India. These are the kind of things that happen in barbaric Islamic countries, not here.
And but coming again to the point that which I asked right at the beginning, that actually one wishes that the BJP had responded to the anger and hurt of its own citizens rather than foreign countries. But these countries too, would you not say, are hypocritical? I mean, they don't care about, when a Muslim is lynched or what's happening to, Muslims in China. They don't speak up then. Clearly for them, a red line was crossed with the criticism and the kind of language, derogatory language used about the Prophet.
The line is crossed when you feel that the threat is getting personal. When you feel that you too may be next in line as a target, then the threat becomes personal. There have been plenty of people who have talked about the Rohingyas or about the Chinese Muslims. But who's going to listen? The Chinese government is going to listen. The Burmese government is going to listen. And it's not something which is an immediate danger to us. whereas threats to Indian Muslims are an immediate danger to us.
Can I ask you though, that do you think, when you said that it would be good to see more moderate Hindu voices and non-Muslim voices speaking out, but what about within the Muslim community also? For example, I mean, you are in the film industry, and I know you've been asked this before, but would it be too much to expect the Khans to speak up and lend their voice to this, or do you think that they would face harassment that is not worth it? I mean, we've seen what happened to Shah Rukh Khan and his son.
Yes, that is the reason. What happened to Shah Rukh and the dignity with which he faced it is admirable, because it was nothing but a witch hunt, and for no reason whatsoever. He has kept his mouth shut. All he did was support the Trinamool Congress and applaud Mamata Banerjee's victory. That is all he did. Sonu Sood, instead of being acknowledged for the great work he did during the lockdown, gets raided. Anyone who makes a statement of any kind gets, I don't know if I'm going to be next, but they'll find nothing anyway. But I think the Khans, no, I cannot speak for them. I'm not in the position they are in. I think that they feel they'll be risking too much. But then I don't know how they explain to their own conscience about it. I think they feel they have too much to lose.
But how do you also feel as an actor when you see your colleagues in the film industry also very openly now, doing projects that are with the government, that are propaganda for the government, with the kind of films that they're making? And I'm going to name Akshay Kumar here, for example, or the Kashmir Files film. And so they're sort of unabashed about that, aren't they?
Yeah, they want to be on the winning side. And it does look like the BJP is going to stay the winning side for a while. It's nothing new. It happened in Germany in Hitler's time. Films were made glorifying him. I've read articles written by some leaders of Indian RSS people about Mussolini, what a great man he was. And I'm sure he was equally worshipped, all these people in their country. So this is not surprising that there are so many filmmakers, because film is the medium which gets across to the maximum number of people who want to propagate the government's philosophy, and who are doing so with great sincerity according to them, truthfully according to them. The Kashmir Files is nothing but an almost fictionalized version of the suffering of the Kashmiri Hindus, and the government is promoting it. Instead of doing something for the Kashmiri Pandits, who were driven out more than 30 years ago, instead of rehabilitating them in some way, instead of making sure of their security, they're making a film for them and saying, you must see this film. So the propaganda is what it is, and there are people willingly participating in it. There will be more and more, I fear, such pseudo-patriotic films.
Pseudo-patriotic. Well, can I ask you though, that when you said that only the Prime Minister can shut down what is happening if he speaks up, what is your appeal to him? What would you want? What would you appeal to him to say? And do you think he would?
I would appeal to him to say what his heart bids him to do. I would appeal to him to knock some good sense into these people. If what he believes is what was said at the Dharam Sansad in Rishikesh, then he should say so. And if he does not, he should say so.
Well, I mean, you're right to the extent that hate has been so normalized that in the past, BJP, spokespersons who've spewed venom on social media or elsewhere have ended up actually becoming spokespersons or getting party positions or even becoming ministers. So they've been rewarded for it, which is why I think the extreme right-wing ecosystem doesn't understand what has happened here and what they should be rewarded for. But finally, Mr. Naseeruddin Shah, can I ask you that as an Indian, as a Muslim in India today, do you feel othered? Do you feel marginalized? Because if somebody like you feels like that, what about the rest of us?
I don't feel marginalized, and I'm certainly not disgruntled, and I certainly am not unhappy in this country. This has been the country I've been brought up in, this is the country I've been taught to love, and this is the country I've been told I belong to, and this is the country I feel I belong to. And I am luckily in a position where I can't be marginalized. You know, senior actors are going to be needed for every project. So I'm still getting work. It's not as if my anti-establishment statements have resulted in me being blacklisted or anything of the sort. I just wish that somehow good sense prevails, but I'm not very optimistic that that will happen very soon. But I must say that I'm in a fortunate position compared to the majority of the Muslims in India who feel threatened and who feel helpless when they see a minaret of a mosque being climbed and a saffron flag being planted on it. I am in empathy with such people because I would never do that to a temple. I would never enter a temple with my shoes on. I would never dare. And I don't think that any Muslim would. So, personally speaking, I don't feel marginalized or left out. And as I've said before innumerable times, never in my life have I been aware of my Muslim identity. I am aware of my Muslim culture. Saying Salaam Alaikum comes more naturally to me than saying Namaste. But both are spoken in our home because my wife is Hindu. Never ever have I felt held back, nor my father who was in the government service, nor have either of my brothers. Have we felt held back? And at the moment we still don't, and we know that this hate wave will dissipate someday. It may not happen in my life, but it will dissipate someday.
Well, I think that's an important note to end on. Naseeruddin Shah, thank you very much for speaking to us on NDTV today, being as candid as ever in your thoughts on what's been happening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Nidhi. Bye.